those who don't know me so well, I'm a little bit of a split personality when it comes to this story, because we start with a Pharisee who's a holy person who thinks they're better than everybody else. Well, they don't really, but we'll come back to that. But a holy person who dedicates their life to following the rules and following what God is asking of them. And the other one is a tax collector, reviled in society because, they're a rich person who's gotten rich off the ill fortune of other people. So for those who don't know me so well, my day job that pays me very well, I'm an accountant. It's not a well-loved occupation. My volunteering time, which is about 20 hours a week at the moment, I work as a governor of the denomination and spend my time worrying about the bigger picture of how things are going. And so I could genuinely sit there and say, well, I work really hard at this. I fast and I pray and I give a lot of money away to charity and to the denomination and to church. But at the same time, God have mercy on me. I am not perfect. I am a sinner. But there's more here than just my personal story. And I did, when Andrew told me that this was the reading for today and that he wanted me to preach, which, by the way, he told me on Friday, I was sat there going, really, do I have to preach another sermon about rich men not getting into heaven? And then I did my homework. And we need to understand that the tax collector really was hated in society. The tax collector was seen as a traitor to the Jewish people because he was there to collect money from the Jewish people and give it to the Romans. And most tax collectors got quite rich doing this because they were bribed to encourage them to not collect quite so much money from some of the richer people. So generally they were not well liked, and they would not be welcome in the place of worship. Other than that, all Jewish men were entitled to go to the synagogue. The Pharisee, by contrast, was there to keep the rules and to be part of the body of priests to help other people connect with God. And to do so, they would have to fast once a week and give a tenth of certain parts of their income to the church, to the synagogue. And for them to pray like this was not unusual. They were genuinely, this was normal for rabbis and holy people to pray and thank God that they were not like some of the others. But in doing so, they created a separation between themselves, we're okay over here, and those others who were somehow not worthy of God. And this particular one was telling the story, he's even better than your average Pharisee because he fasts not once a week but twice. And he doesn't just give a tenth of the income that he has to give, he gives a tenth of all of his income. So, but he's grateful for this. But he is othering a whole group of people. So he's saying, I am worthy because of who I am, what I do, and who I'm not. And he's saying that guy over there is not worthy of being listened to because he is a robber. He is he's just not acceptable. He's a traitor, he's rich, all of the things that they were not. The tax collector, on the other hand, is sat there and he's praying and he's saying, God have mercy on me. The tax collector knows that he's not going to get God's love because of all the good things he does. He's going to get it because God loves him. The tax collector is one of the original outsiders. But not an outsider because he's poor and destitute, but because even though he does a job which puts him outside of acceptable society but makes him rich, he knows that he needs God more than God needs him. Whereas the Pharisee actually probably thinks a little bit like God needs him. And we all know people, and we're surrounded at the moment, and I'm trying to avoid the US election, but it's not a very successful strategy. But we all know that it's actually, Trump is busy telling the world that he's the best because of the things that he's done, and quietly forgetting the things he has no experience of. And Clinton is telling the world of all the things she's done. And we've come to a point in society where even those of us who acknowledge and understand that people don't have what we have, maybe have made mistakes along the way, but we still try and justify our existence. We still say, it's okay, because I've done these things, that makes it okay. But actually, that's not what's here. The tax collector is justified before God because God justified the tax collector. There is nothing that we can do to justify ourselves. There is no amount of good that I can do. There is no amount of money that I can give away that will make me justified with God. All I can do is ask God to love me, care for me, and have mercy on me. And if I understand that about myself, then maybe I need to try and understand that about everybody else. Which means there is no one who is better than me. Well, there might be. But there is no one who is worse than me. I am not better than anyone else at being loved by God because God loves us all. And it doesn't matter how many stupid things we say, mistakes we make, how many things we do wrong, God loves us all equally. It's why in this church we talk about inclusion without priorities. It's why in MCC we talk about diversity and inclusion. We don't get it right every time. We're working on it. We all have to work on it all of the time, because as soon as we start thinking me versus you, us versus them, we automatically get into a space of thinking we're right and they might not be. Even if we don't really mean to say that they're wrong, we still are implying that they are somehow separated in whatever we're doing. There are no others. There is no them in this. The Pharisee was wrong, not because he was standing at the front, standing his prayer and thanking God that he was not imperfect. He was wrong because he separated himself from the other children of God and said, I am better than them. If he is not better than them, it doesn't matter what he does. He just needs to ask for God's mercy. The tax collector, knowing that he's not better, at least not better in a spiritual world, asks for mercy. Now, we don't all need to kneel on the pews and beat our breasts and say, God, have mercy on me now. We can ask as quietly as we want or as loud as we want. The point is not the public spectacle. The point is not that the Pharisee is an evil man, inherently evil. The point is, he's mistaken. He's got into a position where following the rules and separating himself from people who might need him has created a distance, and actually in the end creates a distance between him and God. And if we want to be closer to God, all we have to do is ask. Just like the tax collector did. All those who exalt themselves will be humbled, and those who humble themselves will be exalted. Do you know what? I don't know what that really means. I know that we have in other parts of the Bible, we talk about the last shall be first and the first shall be last. And we do know that if we stand there and trumpet our own achievements, it doesn't get us anywhere. Because none of us can ever be worthy before God, because God is so much more powerful, so much more all-encompassing than any of us can really imagine. So we have to, at some level, be humble. But I think we've got to a point in current society where our understanding of humbleness and our understanding of exalting ourselves is not the same as what was meant when this was written. We need to humble ourselves before God. We need to understand that none of us, no matter how achieving we are, no matter how successful we are in our lives, in our careers, whatever, that doesn't make us any better than anyone else. There's a sketch that comes out every now and again. You know, I'm upper class and I look down on him, and I'm middle class and I look up to him and I look down on him, and I'm working class and I look up. And that's just not, that's how our society came to work, but it's not what God intended. It's not what Jesus was talking about. This parable follows one about a poor woman being justified by God with God through prayer. Jesus is very clearly saying it's not about wealth, it's not about richness or poorness. It's about asking for God to receive you and to have mercy on you. I know that we are really good at looking at the world and saying, that could never happen here. We would never do that. We are also, a lot of us, quite good at looking at ourselves and saying, I've done some terrible things. I've made some big mistakes. I'm going to beat myself up some more so that I feel a bit more sorry for myself. Or I've done something and God couldn't possibly love me. But this passage tells us, that is not the case. God loves us all. God will have mercy on us all. There is nothing that we can have done that means God won't have mercy on us. And there is nothing that someone else has done that we are so clever that we will manage to avoid completely. And the more that we look down on other people for what they've done, the more we fail to